Look what wandered into the shop today. 1979 Honda Trail 90. Let's get it running.
This is pretty much the worst video ever made.
Napoleon, like anyone can even know that.
Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering Adventures. Today we're going to be working on this 1979 Honda Trail 90. A friend of mine contacted me, said that maybe it's his uncle or cousin or something had this thing. They tried to get it going, couldn't get it running, so off to Tom it goes. Let's take a look at it and start diagnosing and get to work. If you're not familiar with my channel, I have a Trail 90 sort of thing here. This is kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of Trail 90, Trail 110, Honda 125 three-wheeler engine, etc. parts that I built because I had quite a few of these things for a while. They just kept coming in, and this is the one I kept. But anyway, this is a 79, and from 1969 to 1979 they're pretty similar. They switched to this telescoping front fork in 69. Before that they had I don't know what you call the other type of fork that they had, leading link front fork thing. But anyway, most of these are very similar. It's a 6-volt ignition system. They have a high-low gearbox right down here, I think from about 65 or 66 upwards. Earlier ones didn't have that. They actually had a dual sprocket setup, and the carburetor was kind of facing forward on the early models. But like I said, they're very, very similar. Points ignition. So the first thing, now that we've looked at it, the first thing that I'll say about these is that you need a pretty good battery for these things to run. They won't run without a solidly charged battery. Now, I have a box of parts here, and I saw an old battery in there. So I'm assuming this is a new battery, but I'm going to take it out. They gave me a box of parts, and there's a 6-volt charger in there. I'm going to put that on the charger. We'll get that chooching, and then we will put on the center stand and start going through everything else. Looks like our battery might be pretty good, but we're going to still let it cook on here a little bit. These batteries are weird. They don't have a regular terminal on them. They have these leads, so it's kind of a pain, but that's fine. We'll get going on that. I've already opened up the gas tank. I took a nice deep whiff of this here. Can you smell that? It smells like old gas. Ooh, it smells bad. I'm glad you can't smell it. But what we will do is we'll drain that out, and then we will get started removing this carburetor. I saw a carburetor in the box as well, and it looks like the stock one. So I'm guessing that this is an aftermarket carburetor on here. So I think what I'm going to do, I'll strip this all down, and then we will probably rebuild the stock carburetor, because those generally work better. These aftermarket carburetors, you can buy them cheap, 20, 30 bucks, maybe even less. But the stock one is going to work the best. So we'll get started. This airbox thing is kind of neat here. Carburetor has a boot that goes into your airbox. The filter's in here, and then you have a snorkel that goes up here, and this is where your air intake is, right underneath the rear rack. This little buddy seat sits on here, but it doesn't matter. So that's kind of neat. Supposedly, you know, if you have this thing sealed up, you could go into water that deep. I doubt it, because points, but I guess if everything is sealed up, it should work. This airbox comes off pretty easily. There's a bolt right there, and then this long bolt right here, and that actually ties into the little cover. And then you take the slide out, and 2 10mm nuts, and she's off. Now, the fuel tank, it feeds from the bottom for the reserve, and then there's a little pipe that goes up for the main tank. So once you get down to that level, then the engine will cut out and you switch to reserve, and it'll draw off the bottom. And I'm pretty sure We're down to the reserve because I could see the top of that pipe in the tank. And then the lines come out of the bottom of it and go here. So there's no real easy way to shut it off, but it's marked on here, O and R. So I'm guessing that's the regular operating tank. I don't know if that's what O stands for, and the bottom one is the reserve. So I'm gonna get myself a little catch can down here to catch this nasty gas, pop this off, drain the fuel out, and then we will set this carburetor and the original carburetor over on the workbench and take a peek at them. There's our two carburetors. It's the one that is the stock one. This is the, I'm guessing, like Amazon style one. And you can see they're slightly different, but we will tear into this stock one and try to get this one good to go. Like I said, I trust this one a lot more. And I think I figured out O is for on, R is for reserve. Silly, silly. And they were hooked up incorrectly on here, on the Amazon carb, or whatever one this one is. When I took it off, the fuel filter broke, but it needs to be replaced anyway. I'll tear this open and we will see what we got in here. A couple of screws to get the bowl off, and we'll even take the fuel selector petcock apart as well. It doesn't look awful inside. This gasket is in bad shape and I do not have one. I'm gonna just put some grease on it for now, because if I can get her going with this and it runs good, then we'll just order up a carb kit. I'm just trying to make sure this thing runs. I don't know if you can remove this pilot jet. I'm not 100% sure. Some of these are pressed in here. I might try to just wiggle it a little bit with the pliers, but I don't want to break it. But I can run some copper wire or a guitar string down there, clear that out. Everything looks okay. We'll get this air screw out of here, or fuel screw, whatever it is. Clean that up. And clean it all up, assemble it, put it back on. And then we will put the battery on, check for spark, and move on. All right, a few things of note on this carburetor. Of course, we already talked about the bowl gasket not being great. I can probably get one of those. When I remove this adjustment screw, the idle screw, or idle mix adjust screw, or fuel screw, or air screw, I guess if it's on the front of the carb, it's a fuel screw. If it's on the back, it's a air screw, or vice versa. I just go by idle adjust screw, or idle air mixture screw. It's probably not correct, but anyway, when I remove that, there is no washer and no O-ring in here, which there should be. And then also the needle for the float has this little tab on the bottom of it. Here's another one for comparison. Now that should have a little spring action to it. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but you should be able to push that in and it should spring back. See that? And this one is kind of sunk all the way in. It's starting to come out a little bit. It was sunk all the way in. So I'm going to keep soaking that. Usually what I do is I soak it in some cleaner. I'll tap it with a screwdriver handle, soak it, so on and so forth. So anyway, I am going to dig around in my little carb parts stash that I have, find a little washer and an O-ring for this, assemble that all together, get that loosened up, and reassemble this carburetor. The refreshed original carburetor has been reinstalled. I had to put a new piece of fuel line on right here because the one that was on here was too short. There's a new filter hiding out over there. And then I also switched out the slide that was in here. That one looked like it was the one for that aftermarket carburetor, so we have that on there. I put the battery on. Now, make sure you have two ground cables going up here that they need to go on that bolt. You have 2 ground cables, otherwise you're gonna have grounding issues. So now, let's see what we have. I should have a neutral light, but I don't. But maybe that's burned out. I can hear the horn trying to horn. Nothing's working as far as lights are concerned, but that's okay. Let's turn that off. And I'm gonna get a spark tester and we'll see if we have spark. If you don't have one of these handy dandy things, they're about 10, 15 bucks. It's worth having around. Oh, look at that. Can you see it? Some spark. That's good news. I don't have to mess around with the points. Okay, I'm gonna put some fuel in here and let's see what happens. See, there's fuel in that filter. Okay, so we're getting fuel into the carburetor and it is leaking already. But we'll just let her fill up. Let it fill the bowl. And then we'll shut it off and see if we can get this thing to fire up. Let's see. Power on. Choke on. Oh my God. One kick. Come on, baby. That sounds good. And I did check the oil. Holy smokes. Wow. That's amazing. I gotta say, I am in shock myself. This thing fired right up. And I turned the choke off. Sounds good. Let's get a carburetor rebuild kit on order for this thing. And then all it is just a matter of cleaning her up. My carburetor kit parts came in. I installed them on the original carburetor. Installed all the pieces. I cleaned it up a little bit. If this was my bike, I'm working on this for a friend, but if it was my bike, I would probably take the foot pegs and side stand and center stand off and the brake or shifter pedal, brake pedal, paint all that stuff. But this thing is pretty original and pretty clean. I spent some time also while I was waiting for the parts to come in, and I got all the lights working. We have a neutral light, we have a headlight, the turn signals work. We'll have to start it up here first. Look at that thing. Beauty. Turn signals work. Turn signal flasher light is very dim. I'm pretty sure I put a 6-volt in there, but maybe I didn't. I fixed the horn. Tail light does work, but I don't have a 6-volt bulb. I could put a 12-volt bulb in there and it works. I have one of those coming. And I also have the front brake switch. It's broken here. Coming in. Low beam, high beam works. So we got everything working on this thing. So I'm probably gonna wrap the video up right here. Like I said, just waiting on a bulb and that switch. It's no big deal. Easy installs, and the bike is finished. And it cleaned up okay, like I said. So if you got an opportunity to pick up one of these little Honda Trail 90s at a cheap price, you know, and you want one, take a shot. They're very easy to work on. And even if you find one, maybe like I said, without an engine, you could do a pit bike swap. They make some pretty big engines that'll fit in here, and they're pretty fast. But in stock form, they're just a fun little mess around town campground style bike. Okay, if you are enjoying my content, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. Thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.